Hello, welcome to another Lunch and Learn with Purse Strings. My name is Maggie Nielsen. I'm a partner here at Purse Strings, and we do these lives to share great information and successful stories about other people out there who are working with our Purse Strings approved professionals. Our Purse Strings approved professionals are professionals who are vetted and serve and focus on serving the female market. And Bazal is one of them. And we're so excited to have her here today to talk about how she was really able to help a business owner kind of reach financial success and really get their concerns taken care of. So I'm very excited for this conversation today. But before we get started, could you introduce yourself and let the audience know who you are and what you do?
I am Bazal Morani. I am the CEO and financial planner with Empire Central Financial. What we do is we look at a holistic view for women entrepreneurs. We help you protect your income. We help you kind of come up with a protection system for your business. And our motto is you build an empire and we protect it for you. So that's what we do.
I love that. That's amazing. And I definitely understand, how you want to build this empire, but still be protected as being an entrepreneur does have a couple more variables than a regular 9 to 5 position. So we're excited to have you on today. If anyone tuning in has questions along the way, throw them in the comments. We're happy to get to those. And if you're watching the replay, you can still throw them in the comments and we'll work on getting back to those. So first, we want to talk about your client who was purchasing a property for their business. And so what was kind of like the reason that they were like, "Ooh, we need to go get some help and we need to go set up a meeting"?
So actually, initially, they didn't come to me as a client. They
Okay.
actually came as a friend, and they were like, "Hey, I am doing this new venture, and I found this property, and I really like it, and I want to get it." And I was like, "Okay, awesome. I think that's great. Did you make sure you did the valuation of the, property? Did you, find good lenders? Are you doing it by yourself? Are you doing partners?" So just as a friend, I was asking a few questions, and at that point, the client was like, uh, "I didn't think about all of this." So we set up a meeting. They came in, and we were discussing just a few things. So we were like, "Okay, let's talk about partners." So I was like, "You have your partners. You created an LLC. That's great. Everybody's in there. What is everybody's roles? What are you
Mhm.
guys going to do once you're set up? How is everyone's positions going to work? How is everyone getting paid? Are you doing K1? Are you doing W2? Because all of those have tax implications. So we were kind of discussing that. And then they mentioned at some point that one of the partners kind of changed their mind on how involved they're going to be. So they're suddenly, I guess, seeing that, okay, this is going to be like a really good business. So now I don't want to be a side partner that's a silent partner. I now want to be more involved. But then
Mhm.
we don't want them more involved because they don't really know what they're doing and they're just going to make it difficult to make decisions. So I was like, okay, I think it's really important for you to have, those buy sell agreements, uh, be very clear of who your lenders are and the fact that they're limited partners with the focus on being lenders. And then you have your partners that are like full partners and what their roles are going to be. It also, a buy sell agreement also helps with making sure that if one of the partners leaves, what is the buyout process for that? What is the valuation of the business if they want to sell it? Or if someone retires or passes away, what's, the acquisition of their shares going to look like? And it breaks down what each person's shares is too. So I was like, maybe that's something that you need to do from the get-go. I think probably before you actually do the closing on the property, just so that everything is in place and protected, so that once you have the property, it's not like now we've done the closing and now, the partners are kind of falling out of line and, not agreeing with anything. Um, After that, we kind of go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I love that. First of all, they kind of ran this by you just out word of mouth, and you're like, whoa, 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 we got a lot of things we need to cover here.
Yeah,
But then, when you do go into partnerships with people and in business and things like that, it has to be more than a verbal agreement. Just because you can see
absolutely.
of who has the say, or if someone just does pass suddenly, or they're no longer interested. And so I love how you bring up how important it is to kind of define these roles before the purchase is made, because otherwise things can get really messy. And I think you'd rather get messy or argumentative before the purchase rather than when you're already in and you're all stuck together. So I appreciate you kind of highlighting this importance of having those conversations and not just relying on like someone's word, as there's a lot of other variables that might pull into that equation.
Right. And I think the hardest thing for people to understand is, yeah, that partner may be a family member, it might be a sibling, a parent, a friend, and you guys might have been best friends since you were like in diapers, but business is business and personal is personal, and you do have to make sure that everything is legally documented. Uh, yeah, you can blindly trust someone 100%, but you still need everything documented and every agreement there. Because, hey, 20 years down the lane, you might not remember what you talked about when you started the business, and that's tough. And people's memories change. So your friend might remember something, your parent might remember something, your sibling might remember something, and you might remember something else. So just having everything documented is super important.
Yeah, definitely. And so you started then with that buy sell agreement of making sure everyone knows kind of their role, what portions they own, and how they would leave, correct, if they wanted
Yes.
to get out of the deal.
And then the second thing we talked about was the lenders, because our client was doing private lenders,
Mm.
and one of the lenders kind of right before, maybe like a month before closing, backed out just randomly. No reason, nothing. Everything was approved, everything was done, and then they just kind of disappeared. And the thing about, corporate, business lenders and private lenders, it's a little different. So they're not going to be like your regular home mortgage. They're going to be a little different, and they work a little different. What the client didn't realize is there was something weird going on between the lenders and the person that was connecting them to the lenders. And so they were having some weird agreements and backdoor stuff going on, which they didn't think anything of it. And I was kind of listening and I was like, I don't know. That sounds a little weird. There's a lot of odd conditions there that they're not allowed to give you, because they're like, oh, we'll give you the money, but, we'll hold on to a certain amount for the renovations, and you have to do the renovations through our friend. And I was
Oh,
like, that they can't do. They can't put conditions like that into the system. So I was like, there's something weird. I don't know if I would highly recommend taking money from these people, because there's
mhm.
going to be some issues down the line. And even the client was like, yeah, the cost that they're saying for renovations is a lot higher than what I'm finding in the market. So I don't really know what's going on. So I was like, okay, let's talk to the seller. Let's get seller financing. Just be like, hey, there's weird stuff going on with the lenders last second, but we really want this property. We want to get the closing done on the right proper date. So can you do seller financing for a certain amount? We can get, personal friends doing some lending for the rest of it. And then we can pay back, we can do a refinancing once we find a proper lender and can pay back everybody and get that sorted out. And so we kind of started working on that process, and so far it's been going good. We've had closing went through, that worked out great. So closing got done, and now we're just working on the refinancing process. And we're also looking at SBA loans and other ways to kind of mitigate that money that we took from other people to make up for that lender. And then I sat with the client and I was like, hey, listen, I understand that, you got these people through friends and that's why you trusted these lenders.
Right.
But here are some credible private lenders for this, and maybe use this list next time. And, maybe you can reach out to them and see if it's not too late to still get that lending and work out what was missed, and you can pay back the seller and those private lenders until and get things back on the roll and get payments and figure it out. And then our last conversation was, of course, tax planning, because
Can I jump in here real quick?
yeah.
Yeah, before we get to tax planning, I love how you bring up to them that there are some things, these contingencies that they're putting in there and different things, need to raise some red flags, especially if their fees for their reconstruction or whatever it is, remodeling is more expensive than other people out there. You're kind of getting pigeonholed. And so having an expert help you and kind of walk you through this can help you, see those red flags, because sometimes you're like, no, they're a friend, it's going to be fine, and you ignore them,
Yeah,
even though it's not always that way. And I also just kind of want to reiterate the point of, just because they're friends or your friend suggested them does not always mean they're the best fit. And we see that all the time in financial
absolutely.
professionals. My dad recommended them, my buddy recommended them, but they might not be the best fit for you. And so it's great to go to those resources like Purse Strings or like your professional to see, do you recommend them as well? Are their credentials viable? Because you do want to make sure, it's your finances at the end of the day. It's a huge
Absolutely.
business, huge loans. It's other people's money. You want to make sure it's really staying in line. And so having that expert advice and expert resources is essential, rather than just going with a friend or a local. Not saying they're all bad. You just want to do your own vetting.
Due diligence, absolutely. And one
Yeah.
of the biggest red flags, and I want to put it out there because I don't know why my client didn't find this odd, but if your lender isn't trying to meet with you personally and is willing to work with you through a third person and communicate through a third person, they're not a good lender and they're not a reliable source. Just no lender will lend money to someone they haven't met and talked to personally and haven't done their checks, their credentials check, and all of that, and interview with.
Yeah.
Even if
It's a
it's
two-way
for
relationship.
company. Yes,
You would never just marry someone you've never met in person or something. I
right.
don't know. It's yeah, that was very interesting.
And they
Uh,
won't give your money to a third person. So if your name is on the lending and they're willing to give the money to a third person without having met you or getting any signed documents, there is something shady and under the table going on,
yeah.
and you should walk away like fast.
So glad your client talked to you about this before they went.
Yeah.
So they got the property, and so now, with all these different loans and stuff, they're doing some tax planning. So how'd you dive in here, and why is this like so essential in this situation?
So I think one of the biggest things that people forget is tax planning isn't an as you go type thing. You do have to plan ahead. So there are certain types of businesses, certain types of business owners, and certain types of entities that get tax deductions, tax benefits, tax breaks, and planning ahead of time helps you make sure that you're following all of those little details so that you're getting all of that throughout the years. Your first year in any business is always going to be a loss because you're putting in your investments, you're putting in the money into your business. Your revenue is not going to be that great because you're just starting out. So knowing how to use that to your benefit in your taxes, how to put your profit and loss together, how to put that into your taxes is super important. And so my dad's a CPA and he's in our office, and that's who I send that to. And we're always looking at new laws. So like 2024, rules just came out, and so we're making sure that we are letting all our clients know, like, hey, just FYI, the limits have been raised. Make sure you're putting this in. Make sure you're putting it in the right line item.
Mhm.
If we're doing your taxes, obviously we take care of that for you. But if you're doing your own taxes, then make sure you're putting in your line items and making sure that you're going over everything. Because a lot of times we think, our profit goes into line A and it's supposed to be in line C. And so we have to just make sure that we're being mindful of how it impacts our taxes and our tax breaks and deductions. So that's
Definitely, yeah.
always important.
Taxes are never as straightforward as we'd like them to be.
No.
But that's why it's so essential to have somebody who knows that like the rules have changed. That's not something you always see on the news or on social media, because some of them are just minute details.
Oh, yeah.
And so knowing that they're changing, and I think there's new changes daily, yearly, a lot.
Yeah, I think we usually. So I personally am subscribed to multiple like news outlets for that specifically.
Yeah.
So almost every couple of months, every quarter, I'll get like a good email detailed, and I could actually show you. I keep it on my table just so that I can show my clients, and I'm like, here's the chart.
Yeah.
This is the changes, and you can see what it is now and what it's going to be next year, so everybody knows. And then like I will walk them through it, and then I send out newsletters, and it's always good to keep up to date. So if
Right.
your advisor sends out newsletters and stuff like that with updates, read them. I know it's not fun, and I know sometimes you feel like you don't really need that information, but there's always something that you can take away from it.
Definitely, definitely. And so now that the product is purchased or the property is purchased, and you kind of are pre doing some of that tax planning, what does this ongoing relationship look like? Are you guys connecting every day? Is the relationship over? Like, well, how does that work now that the property is purchased?
So right now, I think the partners are all on vacation. I think it was very strainful, so they're all gone and they're out of
Yeah.
country. I'm still in touch, and I follow up with them almost every other day just to make sure, like, hey, no, like weird stuff happening, like, are we good? Like, no new updates. And it's in the beginning stages, so they're still working on contracts for like the company and everything. And so with that, I'm kind of just like make sure with everyone you do contracts with, what kind of contract is it? Is it a rental contract? Is it a partial contract? Are they owning part of the shares? Are they part of the business, or are they just part of the using the property? What's going on? How is that happening? Make sure everything's clear in the documentation. And, I have my own attorneys that I refer my clients to because I trust them and I know that they know what they're doing. Um, so that, and then I'm keeping in touch with the attorney as well and making sure that, hey, like, yeah, we got this going on. Like, is everything okay? Are the documents fine? We sit and revise it together just to make sure there's no tax implications with any of the documents, and all the wording is okay. We're not, shooting ourselves in the foot with the wording of the documents. We want to be in the benefit of our client always. So that, and then we're going to, once everything is starting to finalize and get started and everything's up and running, we'll do a quarterly review, kind of look at their bookkeeping, look at their profit and losses, and kind of decide how that's going to impact their tax returns on an annual basis. So that's how we're going to be going through with this client.
Nice. And I like, it's so interesting that if you were to purchase a property, I would think, yes, you would need somebody for the loan. You'd probably need an attorney. You do have the taxes, but not everyone thinks about just talking about this with their financial professional as kind of the main hub. And that's kind of what you remind me of in this situation is then, you go to the taxes, you go to the attorney, you go to the lender, but you're kind of the main hub in this situation. And I don't think people would always think about going to their financial professional for this kind of situation.
Yeah, and it's always a good thing to talk to your financial professional for anything you're about to do. Just because we do this on a daily basis, so there are going to be things that we think about that you haven't thought about. Right?
Hmm.
We're going to see the red flags you don't see. We're going to think about the long term implications of things. We're going to talk about the investors. How are you paying back the investors? What percentage are you paying the investors? What is their interest rate looking like? Is their interest rate too high, too low? Is there something you should be considering? All of that is super important. And, a lot of times when you're in the trenches and getting things up and running, none of that occurs to you. You just want to get up and go and do stuff. And so it really does help just to sit down and have that conversation. And if you have a financial, planner that, talks to you like a friend and is just chill with you, and instead of going like, what are you doing? It's just like, hey, have you thought about this? Like, have you, I don't know about this. This seems a little weird. It feels good and it's a lot less stressful.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to do with my clients. I like to be very like relaxed with them. It's very like, we're having a good time. We're chatting. How's life? But just FYI, you might want to reconsider like X, Y, and
Right.
Z. Right. So like my friend was the client, and they felt comfortable enough coming to me and talking to me about that situation because they know my business and they know what I do. And once they realized that, okay, there's a lot that I don't know what I'm doing right now, they came in. And that's
Awesome.
always important.
Definitely. Definitely. And so, in a big project like this, it's not just a standard financial plan or an hourly meeting. And so, how are you compensated in a situation like this?
So, my personal thing is if I'm doing business planning with them, I will have like a small fee for that. And it's very minimal because most of my business is commission based. So what
Mhm.
I'll do is like if they're getting the business expense insurance to cover their business and make sure their business is protected, then I'll get a commission off of that. If I'm doing like, you know, their business loans or whatever, then I'll get like maybe a small commission out of that. Loans I don't really usually do. I'll usually do more of the insurances and protections.
Mhm.
Uh, but aside from that, like it's usually discussion wise, I kind of cover it in my commissions of the products that I provide, and
Awesome.
those I kind of just I like helping my. I used to be a teacher, so I like sitting there and talking to my clients and just being like, okay, let's
Yeah.
let's walk through this together. And so I, you know, like my clients walk in and they'll just sit and chat with me sometimes and be like, hey, like it's been a day, and I'll be like, let's talk about it. What's going on? So you know, and then I'm also the person in the office that walks around with Christmas hats and stuff like that. So
Somebody's got to.
yeah, so I'm definitely a little less specific on the business planning side. I It's a very small fee, and then I just as the work goes on and progresses, it's just covered within the commissions of the products that I provide.
Which the reason I love this is because, and want to highlight this is, I know sometimes people are like almost afraid to ask their attorney questions because every 15 minutes you're charged, you know, so you want
Right.
to have your questions written out, ready to go and lined up, which sometimes I think prevents people from asking all the questions that they have on their mind. But knowing that this isn't paid, you know, per question, per hour, any of that, you can just call up, have these conversations and really be open about what your thoughts are, what the process is, how you're feeling about it. And maybe those hesitancies come up and you can kind of discuss them. So there's not as much pressure of like, you know, come with the questions in those 15 minutes and you're going to be charged for it. But no, we're in this process together. I'm happy to help at whatever time it is, you know, to make sure your business is going well and up and running.
And I think it's also helpful because you know, like you said, you feel like having those questions written out pre meeting and stuff like that to avoid having a high cost racked up. But a lot of times while you're talking, you realize there's other questions, other
Oh yeah,
concerns, other things you didn't think about, and then you're afraid like, am I going to have to set up another meeting for this now? Am I going to? And if you're just going with the flow and it's just a you know natural conversation, then you feel a lot more comfortable with that.
definitely, definitely. Well, I appreciate you sharing kind of this whole situation and how you helped your client, because this is a huge purchase that they made. So it's great having this amazing financial team. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to make sure is shared today?
Um, I think if you're a client looking for an advisor, just make sure it's someone that you can resonate with, someone that understands your personality. That's very important. So, like, I know that my clients that will come to me will specifically be people that like to share, you know, personal stuff and be friendly and be more open minded emotionally. While if you're looking for someone that's more to the point, straightforward, just talking about money, then you want to find someone that's more like that. Uh, I'll share like a fun little story. So yesterday I had a call, not a client. It was someone that wanted to help me with referrals, and so obviously even in partnerships, it's always
Yep.
important that you guys mash. And so you know my experience with him was very interesting because his first question to me was, "How old are you?" And so, for anyone who wants to do a partnership, piece of advice: don't do that. Not a good start ever. And I was already like, kind of like, okay, listen, like, I know how to do my business. Like, I am a professional. But he was like, I am 75, and so I have a lot more experience than you. And I'm like, sure you do, but I am well educated and well trained in my field. And he goes, okay, well, you know, grow businesses and I sell them at a huge value and stuff like that. And he was talking a lot of numbers.
Hmm.
And I was like, so you already lost me
Yep.
because I am not a numbers person. I am an emotions person. What happens to my clients? How are they impacted if I sell my business? Are they going to be taken care of the way I take care of them? Are you referring me to just anybody who needs a financial planner, or are you referring me to people who need someone that they can resonate with, that they can discuss with? Uh, am I being, you know, a personal connection, or am I becoming just another face that they go to? Uh, and so I was like, if you can't in a conversation pick up that maybe numbers is not the best way to sell at me, then you're probably not the best person to work with me.
Right.
And knowing that with, your clients, and when you're looking for someone, just know what are they focused on, what is your planner focused on, and whether it resonates with what you are. Is it the type of person you are? Does it work with the type of person your planner is? And can they meet you where your weaknesses are? That should be their strengths. So you should complement each other in your partnership. So always be mindful of that. And, just talk to us. We will help you figure out quite a bit.
That's a great example. Not one right. Okay, so I was going to say neither one is right or wrong. I would say
Right.
asking your age at the beginning of the conversation is wrong. But, one's not right or wrong. It's just finding the best fit for you.
Right.
And that's the magic of having so many different professionals out there, is even if you had a conversation, they might just say, hey, so-and-so might be better just because of these reasons, which is great. So yeah, find somebody, interview a couple people, make sure they're the best fit for you, as it's going to be
Right.
clearly an ongoing and long relationship.
And be clear about your goals. What are your
True.
goals? What are you trying to gain from that relationship? Because if they can't give you that, then you always want to make sure that you find someone that can give you what you're looking for specifically. Everyone's services is different. Everyone's expertise is different.
Mm-hmm.
If they can't help you, I'm sure they'll find you someone that can. So always be clear about your goals. If you're not sure what your goals are, kind of maybe just talk through what you're going through at that time. I know, like, there'll be times where I know exactly what I need, but I don't know how to articulate it. So it's a
Right.
lot easier for me to just be like, this is where I am. This is what's happening. What do I do?
Yeah.
And that's always helpful. Like, and for example, like, I do kickboxing. And when I went in, I'd never worked out a day in my life. I didn't understand exercises. I didn't understand like muscle parts
Yeah.
and body mass and all that. It was all like French. And my coaches were really good. They saw where I was at, and they kind of asked me questions that helped me kind of articulate where I was at and what I was trying to do. They helped me figure out what my goal was and help me articulate it. And then they helped me figure out what I need to do to approach it. So, and that's what financial planners are for you as well. If you go, hey, I don't know what my goal is, and we can ask you the questions to get you there and help you figure it out.
Yeah, and it's very different if you're just trying to get some good workouts in and get fit, or become like a master boxer. Very
Exactly.
different goals. We can help you get to both places, but very different routes.
Right.
So it's just important to know where you want to be. This has been so much great information. Your email's been going through the bottom, but is there any other way that you like people to reach out to you if they have more questions or want to book a call?
You can always email. If you go on our website, we have a Calendly there. You can set up an appointment right away, and I'm always for it. I don't mind. It pops up, and I'm there. If you want to give us a call, absolutely give us a call. I'm always available. If not, my team will always set up an appointment for you, and I will reach out to you if I'm off on a presentation somewhere.
Awesome. And Bazal is also one of our Purse Strings Approved professionals, so you could reach out to her off of pursestrings.co. But biggest tip is just take some action. Call a professional, have a conversation, just get to know them and start making some progress. So thank you again for coming on today and sharing your expertise, and we'll talk to everyone again soon.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.